Good afternoon, everyone. Just a sound check and a screen check that you can see the screen. If you could just pop your response in the chat box just to let us know that you can see and hear okay. That would be fantastic. We'll start in a few moments' time. Thanks, Vicky, for letting me know. Pia as well. Fantastic. Fantastic. So we will start very shortly, and I'll just we'll wait for one more moment until some final people come along, and then we will get moving. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for this webinar, Essential Skills for Mastering Office Practice Manager. My name is Ali Cochrane, and also with me on the call is Tiana, who will be helping answer any questions during the webinar. Now, just a few housekeeping items. Obviously, you will find a chat box located in the GoToWebinar if you want to pop anything to let me know if there's any problems with seeing or hearing anything. There is also a questions box. That would be the area we would prefer for any questions be submitted so that they can be answered as we are presenting. So now that I know that you can all see and hear me, which is fantastic, I am going to start our webinar, and bear with me for a minute while I just flick from one screen to another so that I don't lose where I'm supposed to be. And there it is. Okay. Of course, I'm just having a little fun here, so just mind me for a moment while I just get my screen back exactly how I want it, the one that I want. I want that one. Okay. So what we're going to be covering off today, let me just resume the slideshow from the current slide, and come on. Now my screen is deciding that it just doesn't want to do what I want it to do, so bear with me for a moment while I go through this wonderful technical issue. So close that, slideshow. Bear with me. I will do it again. Just wants to be in the meantime. You'll see a blank screen, so don't panic. That is because of me, because my screen's decided it wants to do something funny. Okay, slideshow from the beginning. Swap them over. And now I'm going to go back and check that we're on here and that I'm sharing the screen. Now you should all be able to see the screen again. If someone could just give me a hands up just to let me know that you can see it. Fantastic, thank you. All right, so let's take a look at what we're going to cover off on today. So today we're going to look at setting up your GovReports Office Practice Manager, tracking and managing your workflow with it. We're going to look at checklists so you have a consistent approach to your workflow. We're going to look at assigning staff to jobs and tasks in the management system, we're going to look at productivity and billing. So Office Practice Manager streamlines your workflow using the various tools that are already available in GovReports. So you can use the Google Calendar and Outlook Calendar to gain visibility to jobs on a calendar look. You can get notifications, settings, and reminders. You can use your Office Practice Manager to set up your jobs, set up recurring jobs, schedule work, delegate tasks and jobs, as well as using it for time billing and reports. So what I propose to do is go through these PowerPoints very quickly, and then I'm going to pop into the Office Practice Manager and demonstrate that same thing to you. So it's free with your GovReports subscription. Why not utilize it? As I said, it allows you to assign tasks to staff. You can delegate the work. You can set up checklists. You can organize your workflow. And this all gives you a consistent approach across your jobs to all your client work. Now, a couple of things we do before we set up our Office Practice Manager. We want to make sure that you've uploaded your logo into the My Business area of my account. And by the way, these PowerPoint slides are, as an attachment, you will find them there in PDF format. So check that your logo has been uploaded first. Make sure that all your employees that you want to access GovReports and Office Practice Manager actually have licenses. So you can buy the additional licenses, and we're going to look at that in the additional licenses and authorized use area. Making sure your employees also have the necessary access to those clients in GovReports, and we're going to look at the managed users in that. Making sure that if you are charging by the hour and you've got a billing rate, that you've actually set it up in the billing settings. And customizing your invoice so that you can actually, if you are doing time billing, you can actually generate your invoice out of GovReports and send it to your clients. So you will find the ability to purchase the additional licenses in the My Subscription area. And it'll be underneath the area where you have the information about your own license and the invoices and receipts from it. And down below, you'll have those additional ones. And you can then, you'll find there's a little add button here, which got chopped off when I did my screenshot, that you can pay for an additional license at a lesser cost than a full license. The other area I mentioned was the authorized users. So in here, once you've activated those licenses, you should see your authorized users appear here with their name and their username, what sort of role they have, and whether their license is active or not. Now, of course, if you want them to be actually working on your specific clients, then you'll need to make sure that those clients have given access, well, that employee, is given access to those clients. And that is done in the My Clients area. And when you go and see the 3 overflow button here, the sort of overflow sort of symbol or hamburger bar, whatever you want to call it, everyone calls it something different. When that opens up, you'll see the Manage Users option come up. That then allows you to go to the users and choose which particular employee you want and what level of access you want to give them. So in this case, user number 1 just has the ability to prepare the badge, but not lodge it. Bear with me for a minute. I'm going to cough, so I'm going to mute myself. Don't want to make a noise. Of course, the button won't do what I want. Oh, pardon me. Okay, so we go ahead and we do that. So I'm back here. Now, when it comes to billing, we want to go through into our practice settings, and we want to go through to the billing setting area so that we can customize our hourly rate and we can tell it whether it's tax inclusive or not. Finally, we want to do the invoice setting. So if we're going to bill our clients out of GovReports, then we can put further information about whether we have discounts for them, whether there's any additional charges, anything about terms and conditions. It might be about 7-day terms or whatever it might be, any notes you might want to put on there. So these are the things that we go through first to set up our practice before we actually start getting ready to go into the Office Practice Manager. Now, accessing Office Practice Manager is done through the My Practice area of the GovReports menu here. So in here, you'll see that I have outlined calendar because GovReports integrates both with Google Calendar and Outlook. So what we can do is we can click on the calendar area and it brings up a calendar. Now, it may have nothing here at first because you may not have set anything up. It then will allow you to tick the Google or the Outlook, whichever one you're using, and follows the prompts then for you to be able to go through to connect to Google Calendar. It will ask you to choose an account and you'll just follow those steps through and then your calendar will actually be synced with GovReports. The alternative way to go to it is you can go into the practice settings from the settings menu, the gear icon, go to the integration and calendar setting and enable your Google Calendar here. Now you can also disconnect through these settings, but make sure that if you do disconnect, that the Google settings third-party apps are removed as a connection. The other thing we can do is we can customize the notification settings in the practice. Now, by default, these settings are turned on. And these are very handy, especially now when it comes to you wanting to do things with your Office Practice Manager. This allows you to be notified when jobs are either created or allocated to someone or the status changes or a comment's added. It can notify you when a recurring job is created, the first occurrence or every occurrence. So you can tick and choose which of these boxes you like to choose when tasks are completed or created or comments are added. So you can see, you can get these notifications to pop up. Now, personally, sometimes it becomes, if you've got quite a few clients and you've got quite a few things happening and you've got multiple staff and you're the one getting a lot of the notifications because you've set it up that way, it can be a bit notification over bombardment. So just think of that when you're thinking about the settings that you're going to do. You'll also find that you can also have other notifications and alerts in GovReports around digital authentication. When the queue for BASs and things like that, what the status of that is, they'll pop up. Or when a timesheet status has been changed, then a notification is going to appear. We also have reminders. So when an event or job or a task is added to a calendar and set for a reminder, then the reminder will appear in a pop-up window for you. Now, they can be snoozed for 10 minutes or dismissed, whichever one. But once again, a reminder, another way of making sure things don't get missed, things, pop up. But once again, be judicious in the way that you apply it. You don't want to be over bombarded with 100 million notifications and pop-ups and everything that it becomes distracting. So let's take a look now that we've done some of that basic setting stuff about going in and setting up our Office Practice Manager, which, as I mentioned, is free with your subscription. Now you'll see that the My Jobs area is broken up into the My Practice area is broken up into jobs, which further is broken down by My Jobs, Scheduled Jobs, My Tasks, and Templates. And when we click onto the My Jobs screen, what we get here is a list of all the jobs assigned to us. Now, you can sort by any of the column headings. If you wanted to sort it by job name or client name, the status, the deadline. I personally always sort mine by deadline because I want to make sure that I'm getting the things that are due earliest done first. You have a checkboxes down the side. You have stars here. You have an actions with a 3-button overflow button that when you click on that will give you these open, record timesheet, generate invoice, delete, or print options. The schedule job, these are the jobs that are already set up, and what it shows you is the frequency of the job, the last time the job occurred, and the next time the job is going to occur, and whether that status is active or not. Now, the overflow buttons, when you click on the 3 overflow buttons, or the action items there, you get the option to open it, which is open that job, or delete that job. Now, note well that if you do delete that job, that scheduled job, that stops any further recurrence of that job. And that's important to note. It's if you delete the scheduled job, because the scheduled job is the one that controls some of that recurring nature or when it's due to happen. If it's a recurring job that's due to happen and you delete that recurring job, it won't occur again. Oop, have I gone too far? Yes. Now, with any of the jobs, you can schedule dates, deadline dates, prioritize, set your managers, allocate to team members. And as I mentioned before, each team member needs a GovReports license. So you'll see details about the job name and give it a name that's meaningful for everyone so that it makes common sense for everyone. You'll see there's an area there about the billing method. You can see the status of it. You can see the allocate to area. So here's our status. Here's our client name. Here's our schedule information. What sort of priority does it have? Low, high? Who's it managed by? Who's the person I'm assigning work to? All this information is set up when you are doing the job. The next thing we're looking at here are our tasks. Now, these are the tasks that I've got displayed here that are created or assigned within each job. So within each job, you have tasks. And within each task, you have checklists. Now, if you check the top box in any row, on the heading row here, it checks all of the boxes here. One of the beauties of this is that this allows you to batch action at something. So in here, for example, if all of this work had been completed and I ticked that box, I could click on the status and say it's all been completed, and it would mark them all as complete. So it gives you that option to bulk action, not just singly go through and change the status of a job, of a task, I should say. Keep losing my mouse. Now, as I mentioned, the tasks are what are created and assigned within each of the jobs. Now, there are several types of statuses. We have open, not started, open in progress, closed invalid, closed completed, closed cancelled. There's also in progress, etc. So we'll have a look at that a little bit more when we go into it. You'll see that you have a date, a user. This is the one when I've checked that box where I ticked all of them. By ticking all of them, this is what popped up for me when I went by what options I had. I could select the status to close all of them or cancel all of them or call it in progress, whatever. I could update the select date. I could change the user for all of them, or I could delete all of those tasks. So that was what happened by clicking that all checkbox. We also have job templates. Now, the job templates allow us to do things like set up our tasks and set up recurring jobs. There are a number of default task templates that come with the GovReports Office Practice Manager. But there are also those that you can custom create yourself. And you can either custom create the tasks from an existing task or create it from scratch. So our default task template, there are 3 of them at the moment here. There's a BAS preparation template, there's an end of year template, and there's a payroll end of year template. Now we can clone them, as I said, copy them. We can attach them to jobs that we've already set up. We can print them. And you'll see that along each line, there will be the name, have the client name and other information. You can clone, attach to jobs and print. We can also create a task template, as I said, by cloning an existing template or creating the new one. Now, once you've created one, if you've changed it in any way, it's going to then appear in the custom task template area. So if you want to clone a template, we go to the default task template menu in the top right of the screen and we select the word clone. When we do that, it asks us what the template name will be. And do we want to share this with all members of our team? It brings all the tasks that have already been set up under that default template we chose, but because we've given that cloned template a name, it will come up with a different template name. And so now this will now appear in here. So when I chose the BAS preparation checklist, I renamed that when I cloned it to BAS preparation checklist for MYOB. Now you can use that as it is, or you can modify those tasks in that template. So as I said, to edit the custom task, now you're just going to click on the task name, edit it, and add in the items of the checklist of each task. To create one from scratch and brand new, we're going to go to the Customs Template tab. Then on the right-hand side, we're going to create new. And you'll see here that we have to give it a name. Once again, are we going to be sharing it? And then you'll see down here we can add tasks. You see a little plus down the bottom here? Here I'm adding a task. And then within that task, I can add various things into my checklist to make that a complete list. So there are a task and a checklist. So these things with the checkbox are your checklist, and these with the headings here are your tasks. You can then save your template. At any time you can go in and edit your template by simply going to that template, clicking on edit, and going into the area or the task that you want to edit. Now, The reason I show the tasks first and and I will show you the checklist when we go into it, the actual GovReports in a moment, is that you need to create the tasks before you even get to the jobs. It's much easier to create the tasks first and then create the job templates. What a job template does is it allows you to create a single job template that's not recurring in nature. So remember that job templates are single occurrences, and you can use a job template or a task template to set things up for one-offs. But a recurring job template is one that is recurring of nature. If you select job template and set it up, you cannot make that into a recurring job template afterwards. You have to have used the recurring job template first to get a recurring template. You can add additional tasks later, by the way. You can always go back in and amend the tasks, but if you're going to do that, first go to your task and amend it. But most importantly, if you have an ability to, if you've got it as a recurring part of a recurring job, you need to go in and edit the scheduled job, the next scheduled job, so that it updates for the next lot of recurring transactions. I hope that answers that question, Kim. Now, recurring job templates, as I mentioned, allows you to have these happening on a recurring basis. So for me, I have my BAS checklists and my IAS checklists and my payroll. I do all these sorts of jobs on a recurring basis. And so I set these up as recurring jobs. It's very similar to the normal job template. It has the job name, a billing method. We have a frequency at which the job is to happen, when it starts, how many future ones to create once you set this up. If I say one future occurrence, and it has to be a minimum of one, it will create another one as well for the next recurring date. Whether or not I'm sharing that template, what's the duration from the start date to when it's actually going to be due? Is it a high priority, medium, low? It will start usually with an open, not started status, and it's going to be managed by whoever the manager is. And then you're going to assign it to all the relevant people of the team. For me, it's just me in this one. Now it takes you and says, what tasks do you want to add to this job? So you can choose to copy an existing customer or default task template, which is why I set the tasks up first in the first place. Or you can add a task and create it all in here at once, which is the other reason I create the tasks first. Because if you create the tasks first, number one, you have a uniform layout for each of the jobs that you can later go into the specific client jobs and customize to make it more specific to their needs. But you've got a default one to work with, which gives uniformity and consistency in the way that you approach the work. Now, once you've copied, you can then edit and add further tasks in this one. And then when you're finished, you click on Save. And then from the main recurring job template screen, which it will then take you to once you've saved, you can now select this recurring job template to be attached to specific clients. Another reason trying to keep everything uniform is that if you create, like I have here, a quarterly BAS for 0, then I can attach that to all my quarterly BAS clients in one go. So I click on Attach to Clients, the names come up, I check them off, And what it will do is it'll actually put in the client name, quarterly BAS 0 as the job name. I personally don't need to have the client name showing me again because I can already see it when I'm doing it, and in the list I can see it. So I just take that out and leave it as quarterly BAS 0. That's my preference. That may be totally different for you. Then once I've ticked the box which clients I want to attach, I click on the attach button, and now you'll be able to see that in the scheduled job list, you now have this recurring weekly wages for this one. Here's the date, week frequency, here's the last occurrence, here's the next occurrence, and it's active. Now in the actions, I can either open, edit, or delete. The job summary area allows you to take a look at what the stages are of your jobs. So in here, in this example, because of the deadlines I've put in and there's nothing much here, everything here is sitting in the open, not started. But if I was to change the status, you'd be able to see at a glance what stage the jobs are all at. Now, if you are still tracking time and using it for billing, then you can use the Office Practice Manager to help you with that. So we're going to take a look at a couple of things, the timesheets, the manage the timesheets and the invoices, and then we're going to actually jump into Office Practice Manager and make it all work for us and go through what we've seen. So timesheets you will find in the time billing area of My Practice. You'll see that the plus button allows you to auto add, and when you click that auto add, you have the ability to add a job template, add a recurring job, add a timesheet, create an invoice. The recent activity will show you recent activity, and the auto timer is self-explanatory. So in here I have a new timesheet that I have created. Let me go back a screen. I've gone to the plus new on the right hand side here of to create a new timesheet. I've got the job number. The task I was doing was creating this. Here it is, the date and the time, the duration. Is it billable? Is it non-billable? Save. This can also be exported to CSV. So you can see here that once I've saved it, the information is there. It's 1 hour, it's billable. And you have an option of these other actions down the side here where we can add these different things and generate our invoice. We can take a look at manage timesheets, and that will show us the timesheets that are there, and we can filter that by pending or approved and see what's actually there that's billable, etc. So at the moment I've said these are the pending timesheets. So these ones are likely to need to be approved. And I probably would be able to do that by clicking the top button here and getting the option to approve them. Once they've been approved, I can go ahead and generate my invoices. So in here, I can generate a new invoice. When I click the new, I can select my client. And anything that might pop up here, the jobs that are ready to be billed, I can tell it all the uninvoiced billable hours, or I could set a date range before I generate my invoice. Now, along with the time information, we also have a series of reports. We have a staff time detail report. We have a job time detail report. We have a running time detail report. And we have an invoice report. Right. We're going to cover that now by actually going into GovReports and looking at doing that and where we set everything up and how we get it all to work for us. So let's move across to that. So bear with me. And once again, I'm going to try and find my screen that I want. So good question. Here it is. That's the one I want. All right. We should all be able to now see a GovReports dashboard. Can you confirm, just one person will do, by putting your hand up to say you can see that, or whether you're still wonderful? Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Kim, I'm not 100% sure whether you can upload the invoice into Sasu. You should be able to create a timesheet for a phone call, and then it could be billed, because if you mark it as billable, that should be able to be billed, Natalia. So Tiana might be able to answer the one about whether it can be imported, loaded into Sasu.
We haven't checked. Sandeep?
No, I don't. I mean, we haven't checked as well. So give it a try and let us know if is there any template is not suitable. I think if you can download as a CSV and you can upload that, or a PDF copy. Yeah, I think the PDF copy should be allowed in this also. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, so let's go through what we covered very quickly in the overflows, in the PDFs, I should say. So the first thing I did was we went into the settings and we went into the My Account. Oh, it's going to log me out for a second. Let's go back in. Come on. And we went into the My Business area. And in here, we made sure that our logo was uploaded in here to ensure that when we generate our invoice, our logo is up there. We also wanted to make sure that in the settings, in the subscription, that we could add the additional user licenses in here before we went to our clients. Computer says no. Yes, okay. Before we went to our clients and made sure that in here, I'm going to open that client. And then within my client in here, I could manage my user and I could add my user in if there was one to display. Then in my settings, I wanted to make sure in my practice settings that my billing was set up for my rate. So here's my billing settings. Set whatever rate and say whether that's tax inclusive or not, and click the update button. And then I would go to my invoice settings and update what I need to update here before clicking on save. So let's go now into the actual Office Practice Manager. When I go to my practice, oh sorry, one thing I meant to do next was actually go into my settings here, my practice settings. Forgot about my calendar. So in here, here's where I could go and enable my Outlook or my Google Calendar to work with GovReports. Now, alternatively, I could go to my practice and I could go to calendar here. I could check on Google here, just giving it a minute. Don't want to rush it. And it would ask me whether I want to connect, and I would follow the prompts. Down here, I have the ability to see what my client reminders are. But up here in my practice settings, this is where I would go in to set in my notifications. And at what and how much I wanted to be notified. And as I mentioned before, we can see our reminders in here, and they will pop up. Now, here's where we break down into our Office Practice Manager. We have our jobs, which are broken down to my jobs, schedule jobs, my tasks, job templates, and job summary. So the job summary, as I showed before, is just a very quick screen grab of where everything is at, and you can put a date range. If I put today's date range, that's not going to work. And in here, I'll probably find that there are 161 jobs not started. I have some in progress. I have, so you can see that the status of where everything is at. Let's take a look at jobs and the job screen. Just going to I'll come back to Kim's question about the rates shortly. So come along screen, thank you. It's taking a little time. So in here, as I mentioned, you can actually click on the heading, and this will allow you to sort by that. So for me, I would normally sort by my deadline, ascending, descending, etc. When I click this box, you'll see that everything comes up. And if I was to click on status, it would allow me to bulk change the status, which I only showed you a brief summary of all of those jobs. If I clicked it and said, information received, it would update every one of these statuses here as information received. I'm not going to do that. Going to untick that. Our scheduled jobs are those jobs that have already been set up. Once again, I said, shows you the last occurrence, the next occurrence, how frequent, whether it's active, and the two actions here are to open or delete. And if I was to delete this one here, because it is a scheduled job and it's annual, which suggests to me that it is recurring in its nature, then if I deleted it here, it would never occur for that client again. I'd have to set it up from scratch. Now, with any of the jobs, if I was to open the job, in here, I could go into edit, and I could go through, and if there was a change, say a staff member had left, I could go into that scheduled job, unassign this person and assign another person, for example. I could change the date ranges. So quite often for me, if I have a new client that's come on, and when you set up the recurring job template, it will retain the start date here. And that's something to remember, because when you bring a new client on, you like to use this same recurring job template, but you don't want it necessarily starting at the 30th of the 4th, 24. So before you attach a recurring job template, just make sure the dates are going to be valid. Otherwise, if I was to create this now, what it would do is it would create a whole range of jobs from the 30th of the 4th, 24, right up to when it's currently due to happen, rather than when I actually want it to happen from the 30th of the 4th, say 25, for a new client. So in here, you can see the frequency, who it's assigned to and allocated to. You can see these priorities that you can set. Susan said she had that happen from 2016. Yes, I've done the same. I ended up doing 20 jobs for one person once, and at least you can bulk delete them. My tasks. This shows all the tasks that have been assigned and their status. Once again, checking the box up here allows you to allocate it to a different person. You could delete them all in the case of if you accidentally, added something, or change the status, etc. Pardon me. So let's take a look at the tasks. Pardon me. I'm going to go to the job templates because this is where we find our task templates and our job templates. Bear with me, just going to take a sip of water. Okay, so to avoid the start date recurrence, do we add a custom? No, not necessarily, because if you are using a job template that is a standard one that you use for everybody, all you need to do is go and update the start date of the recurring job template or the job template itself, and then create your job and attach it to the client. And that will just mean it'll create the date that you want, and then you can further go into the schedule and change it once it appears on the schedule. So the default task templates, as I mentioned before, are the BAS preparation, the end of year template, and the payroll end of year template. So if you took a look at this one here and you thought that was great, but you wanted to customize it a bit, rather than reinventing the wheel, we can clone that template, and I can call it payroll end of year, and I'll just say 0. I don't have any other members to share it with in here. I could if I wanted to. And what that does now is it creates that template, everything there that I want. That's wonderful. There it is. It's got all the tasks that I want. If I want to add something new to a task, I simply go in here and go, I'm just going to add just something there, complete test. If I don't want that there, I can delete it. Now I might go through and actually attach it to, and this is old because it's got payment summaries. So I might get rid of this section altogether and add a brand new section, a new task called STP finalization. And then I can go and add things into my checklist. So I can add things in. Yeah, like let's remove that and let's add something sensible. So let's add a checklist and put in reconcile, no, complete, ensure all payrolls have been completed. Then I'm just putting one in, but you can get the idea. I can add more to that. I can now go ensure bank reconciliation has been completed. Reconcile gross wages to salary and wages in GL. And it's the enter key, not the tab key, just to let you know. And yeah, so it's things like this. So you could go through and do things like this. I find changing the order of tasks I do tend to do within the tasks, because you can see now that I accidentally got this out of order. So that's why I tend to do the tasks, go back and do the tasks first and then slip them in. So you can see here that you can add things in here. Now I can go through and I can either attach that to a job or just clone it for the moment. I'm just going to clone it for the, no, I'm just going to save it. I'm going to attach it to a job. And now I can go through and I can choose whichever relevant job it might relate to. So I don't even see that I've got one, but I'll just choose one just for the sake of it. And I can attach it. So now I'll have in my schedule that particular job. So we've gone through and we've created a task and we cloned it just to make it easy. We could have just gone here and created a custom task and created a new one that we can do from scratch. And this allows us to move things around a little bit better. So in here, you'd go through the same process. The only difference is you're not necessarily attaching it to any jobs at this stage. So you give it whatever name, we'll say payroll end of year, and we call it MYOB. Then I'm here, I'm going to add a task, and I'm going to go STP, finalization. I have given you a name. Why are you not doing it? My computer is doing something funny. Well, that's because I've probably already got one that's very similar. So I can create my task templates first, which is what I do first, before attaching it to jobs, because sometimes the job may not be there. And as I mentioned, in here, you can go into this and go through and edit it. So in here, I can delete things. You can see in here, for some reason, it's decided to duplicate everything. So I'm just going to delete the duplicates. And I have no idea how it did that. So I would go through and that will have saved and been done and dealt with. Let's look at our job templates. So as I mentioned, job templates are standalone jobs. These are not recurring in their nature. They will appear on the schedule, but they will not have an upcoming date. They'll just have the scheduled date. So in here, when you create a new job template, you give the job a name. You can allocate the tasks here. You can add a task, or when I go to, let me just close this up for a minute. New, give it a name. Open not started. It's going to be based on job hours. I can set a rate here. So to answer your question, Kim, I can have a billing rate set up overall as a default, but I can also put a specific billing rate attached to the job. 65. So if I go, that's the scheduled date. No, the scheduled date will be the end of June, and I have a deadline date of the 14th of July. Priority will be high because it's such a tight deadline. Managed by, yep. And I could allocate it to me, which I've done, and I could save that. Now, I've created that here. I could choose a default task template or a custom task template to copy my tasks in. So if I did this one, for example, I could copy this task into this job, save it, rather than adding the tasks in manually. If there was something little, I could add them in manually. So now I've got all my tasks in here. Now, if you wanted to add something, you could just as easily not necessarily do this for BAS related or accounting related work. You could use to set up a task for the, say you had a receptionist at the office and they had to pick up, of course, someone has to ring when I'm on this. Bear with me. My son is very insistent. All right, so, and unfortunately, I can't turn that phone off. It won't turn off. So excuse the ringing in the background. So with this, you could use it for an office receptionist who has to go and pick up the mail before she comes into the office. When she comes into the office, she has to make sure that there is the meeting rooms are clean and tidy, and that um, there is water in a jug with the glasses in preparations for the day's meeting. There is pencils and paper and notes, information there, and company brochures for upcoming meetings. She might need to make sure that if they've got a telephone system they use to do meeting calls, that that's all set up okay. And then she wants to make sure that the computers are turned on, the air conditioning is working okay, everything's all good and fine for when everyone comes into the office. You could just as easily do something like that using this same sort of thing. So you've seen now how I've created this job and actually copied in an existing task. I could have added the task manually, but if I create a task template beforehand, it's easier to bring them in and then actually delete the things I don't want in here, and it makes it easier rather than reinventing the wheel. When it comes to the recurring job templates, it's exactly the same process. The only difference being in here, you set up a frequency. You set up here how many future iterations will happen once you save this job. Select the days, assign, and the same process you will go through and you will add in a task. You'll bring a task in And then you will go through, and if I go back to my jobs up here that I just created a moment ago, the only thing I didn't do when I created that one that I was doing was I forgot to add a client to it. I don't know if I saved it. There it is. So in here, I now just go through and I select my client. So you'll see here, it picks up the client name dash this. For me, I just like to edit that out and I just leave it because I'll leave it this time, but I normally like to take it out. The reason I take it out is I can already see the client name when I set this up. And so now with my scheduled jobs, or with my jobs, I should have one coming up in the future date. So there it is there, and I can see the client name. That's why I don't put the client name in here again, because I can already see it here. So exactly the same process for recurring job template, except you add the frequency. Now I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to very quickly run through timesheets. And in here, in the time billing, we have our timesheets. In here, we can add a job, add a timesheet. So if I create a new timesheets here, I can choose my job. If I've got any jobs I've already been picking up from times, I can do that. In here, I've got the tasks they were working on. I can put all that information, or I can just leave it and put in, 1 hour billable, and it will pick up my default rate. And the other thing I did want to show you that I've meant to show you before, that's very clever of me, I can actually turn a timer on when I start working on a job by using this auto timer here. So I could do this and I could start my timer. Start it, and then when I'm finished, I can stop it. And it's added to the timesheet list. Within my job, I can see my timesheets. I can add my timesheet as I'm going. I can start you can see I can start adding my timesheet in as well. In the managed timesheets, you get the overview of everything that's pending or it's been approved. Nothing in here at the moment. And then, of course, in my invoices, when my computer decides it wants to respond, I can see my draft invoices here, which from the actions I can then send it out after I've reviewed it, or I can go through, edit it, and make a change to it. I won't go through the reports, they're pretty self-explanatory there. Susan asked, can you use this as a way to gauge what hours are spent on clients? Absolutely. If you use it just as a timer, just to get a feel for it, you don't have to bill it. I don't necessarily bill using Office Practice Manager because I have clients who are on fixed fees and things like that. So I don't bill on an hourly basis for those ones. So you could choose not to bill. If you remember when you set up your actual jobs, if you look at my jobs, you'll see in here that you have the option in here when you set them up as to whether they are billable or not. So if you leave this blank, it's not going to do anything for billing, but it will allow you to track the hours spent if you use the timesheet side of things. That has come to the end of the presentation. There was an awful lot in there, and so you will have the screenshots. I don't know
along with
if
the
everyone.
recording.
Pardon?
Along with the recording.
That's true, with the recording as well, so that you are able to go back and play around with your Office Practice Manager. I can tell you that um, it. I learnt the hard way to do tasks first rather than jobs, and I went through and I did things, and I ended up making mistakes and deleting them and redoing them. And so that's why I tend to tell people to do the tasks first, because then you can add them to the jobs and you can always amend them within the jobs. I don't know if you can have a fixed fee instead of per hour. I think from what I can see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tiana, it's geared for um, a rate either per job, per client, or per hour. Is that right?
That's right. So you can, at the moment, you can based on the hourly, you can set the hourly rate on the client, or based on the staff member, or based on the job. Right? So the fees that you can set, but the fixed fee for fixed fee, yeah, the fixed fee, if and when we are considering of implementing the payment gateway, then you can set up the fixed fee. But at the moment, it's not there. It's no point for us to implement that, Natalia, at this point.
And
But
the
you can.
recording will be sent out too when it's finished, just to let Susan know.
Yes, Susan, it will be on our website by tomorrow, the recording, but we will send it out. We will send out the emails for those that are attending today, the copy of the recording, and the link when it's available, and also the attachment. If you can't download the PDF, that's the slides that Ali has shared or has shown today, will be along with the recording as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
sorry, Tina. When we're talking about the fixed fees, so we have a settings on the settings where you can under the billing you can have the billing amount that could be reflected wherever you go and prepare a timesheet or doing the invoice.
so in the practice
Practice
settings,
settings, and then billing settings. Yeah, that's the one.
So that's per hourly though. Fixed fees
yeah,
means that
fixed
they
your fee.
charge the client,
Right.
they
Okay.
charge the
Yeah.
client
Yeah.
on a
Yeah. Yeah.
weekly basis. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. There's one question. I know there's a lot to get there through there, Kim. I'm just trying to look at the question section. Is it possible to add the date of the invoice issue in the? I can't see the rest of the question. Oh, there
And
it
you
is.
click on it.
It's all right. Found it.
Yeah.
It's a new layout in the section. My client. is it possible to add the date of the invoice issue in the invoice tab? In here, in my clients.
Yeah, my clients, go to click on the client's name.
Yeah.
Click on the client's name and you can see the
Invoice tab.
invoice. Yeah, the
Jobs and
billing
invoice.
settings, letters and template, not the invoices. Oh yeah, jobs and invoices. So down there we have invoice. Can you bring up the client which has some
That's
invoice?
just going to be a recording on what invoices you've done. That won't be one where you can. Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, so is it possible to add that as a field to add
Yeah.
the date of the
All right.
invoice?
Okay.
'Cause
Yeah,
here,
it's possible. We can do that.
yeah. And I was just going to have a look at the billing setting here. No, that's still per hour.
That's
I've
the
just seen
client
it. You can override it.
settings. Yeah,
But that's per
there's no
client.
fixed
So
fees.
that way you
Yeah.
could get round with it. Yeah.
Mm.
Any further questions? No. Well, thank you, everyone. I know it's rushed, and I'm sorry about my dear insistent son phone calling in the middle of it. It's a lot to go through, but as I said, with the notes, and if you actually play through and feel with it, the other thing I just wanted to highlight is the help here. You've got the user guide, and if you go online here into the My Practice, it's really lovely to go through. It just takes you through really, really nicely with screenshots and demonstrations so that you can actually play around with it yourself. I actually chose, when I implemented Office Practice Manager, to do it over the Christmas break when I had, a little bit more time without client phone calls and all the rest of it. And whilst I mucked a few bits and pieces up and learnt the hard way about scheduling things and forgetting to change dates and bits and pieces, it wasn't that long before I was able to get it all up and running. And and as the team goes through things, they can change the status to in progress or awaiting information and things like that. So at any time, it gives you great visibility to what's happening in the system and what's happening in your practice, and giving you that level of control. So that's it from me, unless Tiana has anything else to add.
No, that's pretty much. If you got further questions that was not asked here, more than welcome to send us an email, and yeah, we'll attend to it. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.